Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Wednesday. It is December 31st, New Year's Eve. 2025 is on its way out. I hope that you are doing so well. I know I haven't been on since right before Christmas, which wasn't my intention necessarily to stay away, but sometimes I just get the impromptu nudge to just fall back. And sometimes I know why, sometimes I don't, but nonetheless, I do not fight it, especially during the holiday time. You feel me? So, of course, I wanted to jump in before the ball drops. And I was thoughtful about whether or not that was the calling, and I felt pretty enthusiastic that it is. So I'm excited to be here. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, holiday, Kwanzaa. Is it Kwanzaa? That's a shame. I don't even know. Is Kwanzaa still happening? I think it's on its way out or just done or something like that. I can't remember. Hanukkah, whatever the heck you celebrate or don't. I just hope that this has been a magical season and that it's just been the precursor for what we're gearing up for in 2026. So I think this is going to be a bit of a gateway threshold type of message, like bringing closure to our current year, and of course, it's the end of the calendar year, the Gregorian calendar. But we know, well, those that subscribe to it know that the cosmic new year is spring equinox, or the beginning, like, of Aries season, more or less. Like, that's when we really are looking at a new year, because that's the first sign in the zodiac. But collectively, we're all celebrating closure and new beginnings and looking forward to something now. And if I honestly, it feels like, to me, how I'm channeling it is um really almost like the preparation for that new year, cosmic new year, um outburst or breakout. That's what I'm feeling. Not that great things aren't happening now, even, or won't be happening for the first quarter or so of the year, but it feels like you know I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of folks are going to be experiencing like a rev up, be like that engine revving behind the scenes for the next couple of months, where things are happening and there's just being more and more intensity added on to your life experience by way of things you're creating, new discoveries, stretching yourself in ways that you never have before. Maybe new relationships, maybe a change of scenery, location, job. Like, different things are going to be happening in this transitional phase, because the year one that we're stepping into is a big initiation year. Like, it's like the kickoff of what the next era, maybe the next cycle of your life is fitting to look like, and feel like. So anyway, like, I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm saying that to maybe relieve a little bit of the pressure of, how it is, that new year, new you energy, or new year, new me energy, where you almost feel this drive to make a sudden change overnight by January 1st, or to kind of whip yourself into this new identity or new expression of yourself by January 1st. I'm here to relieve that pressure, that this can be a graceful becoming, a graceful unveiling, a graceful, like, things can be added on to you in regards to that new expression of self, in a much more gradual way than what your human mind might be already geared up to pressure your human vessel to adhere to. or adhere by. So if anything, just allow yourself to just stay present, go with the flow, continue to bring closure to things. Like, no fret if there's still some things that haven't quite been swept out the door, quite been released. I got one good one for you that stay tuned, you'll see in another post about things that may still be lingering from the past, in a very practical sense, that still, need some attention, before, by the new year, or at the top of the new year, or as we are crossing over into that new year. All right. So, but I will say that one of the ways to definitely start to prepare yourself is by releasing old stagnant energy. And one of the ways I did that physically, and this is real primitive, but I thought I'd share since my hands are always in your face, right? Is I cut my nails down. Well, I had my nail tech cut my nails down, and she was kind of, resistant, because she, of course, in her nail tech um, mode, wants to see nails as long and strong as possible. But I felt like that was one way that I could release some old energy, because I haven't really had like a proper nail clipping, nail reset, probably in a year, to be honest. So that's one practical way, because nails, hair, um, even that's why we scrub our skin, like, just to release those dead energies, those dead cells. Um, Particularly nails and hair, like, get your hair clipped, or a nice good rinse and wash, or whatever. Like, just cleanse your aura personally in a way that seems primitive, but you'd be surprised the impact that it can make. Okay. And another way, for those that are clothes and wardrobe enthusiasts like myself, or style enthusiasts, I should say, is to clear your closet. And I'll be back at another time to kind of share the ways in which I do that for myself constantly. But when I work with ladies personally, the first thing I often am curious about is the state of their wardrobe, their closet, not just what they put on to present themselves publicly, but also, like, what energies are being harbored in that very sacred space. Is very telling. It's very telling. It's very therapeutic to work with and to cleanse. And it says a lot about where you are in the present moment. So I invite you to maybe peruse your closet space, particularly your wardrobe closet. If you have the time and energy to do so. Again, no pressure between now and through the top of the new year, and start to really make considerations for what garments really do express your pure identity, your authentic identity, in the way that you feel most proud of, in the way that really is like an outer extension of your inner confidence. So like I said, that more on that at another time. But it's something that I personally have a charge to execute. So I figure, why not share that experience and kind of share my philosophy on closet cleansing, as it is for a better life, for a holistic life, in the process. So anyway, stay tuned for that. And that was one of the things I was kind of pushing myself to hurry up and do, before the actual dawn of the new year. And I had to kind of like settle myself, like, there's always an opportunity to do such things, and there's no pressure particularly to do such a thing as that. So that's really like a personal testimonial of how I am walking my own talk, in real time, even when I don't necessarily speaking on it, but especially when I do. I'm the first line of offense usually. But anyway, so there was a small preview when I was shuffling, and it was pretty consistent, but we'll expound as we get into the cards. I didn't expect to say all that other stuff, give all those previews for what's to come, but hey, it is what it is, and hopefully it's something that you can look forward to. But what I was seeing is that, okay, let me ground myself again to remember Um, thank you. Okay, so what I was seeing is, bless me, excuse me. What was it? Darn it. Oh, okay. So what I was seeing is that there is or is about to be this, like, a relentless disbursement of um how can I man, it was so clear to me when I was seeing it, but how can I express it? So I was seeing it on two different sides of the spectrum, on the high vibrational aspect of this, which I hope you can relate to. It's like things are going to be coming in as a response, a repayment, a return, a reward. Like, just things are coming in such a way, or maybe at such a magnitude that you won't really be able to logically place, like, where is this coming from? Like, why am I getting blessed like this? Why am I having such luck, such favor, such privilege? And it's going to feel like an outpouring, a downpouring, an outburst, maybe a breakthrough, perhaps, of such amazing things, like delightful things, that you will have a hard time remembering either the origin of this reactionary response from the universe. Like, is it something I prayed for? It could even be things that you prayed for that you forgot you did, things that you worked for that you kind of put to the side, or things that you were working toward that you didn't realize were being manifested the whole time, maybe like not in a physical sense, like in your material reality, but we're already on the way according to seeds that have been planted, maybe years ago, maybe months ago, perhaps seasons ago, maybe eras ago, perhaps even lifetimes ago. It's literally like fate catching up to this dynamic moment, or to a dynamic moment in time for you, that almost seem that is surreal. That honestly is surreal, because what I was seeing is that you won't even have, first of all, you may not have the time to pause for all the things that, like almost collecting, or receiving the things. You may not even have the time to take a pause for the cause of considering where it's all coming from, or why you, or why all this, or why now. It's just going to be coming in, and you're going to have to figure out, in a way that is a good problem to have, how to place the energy, whether it's a reinvestment, a spending, a saving, a sharing, an offering, maybe even in some cases, most of the things that I'm talking about are things that you would be justified to receive and accept, but there could be some, it could be a matter of like a no thank you, where you may have to say no or reject certain things, maybe because you just don't have time or room to fully receive it. That's the type of abundance, thank you God, abundance that is coming through. And it's abundance, as I said, on both sides of the spectrum, because and I'm only going to touch on this for a second because I don't want it to permeate the message, but there's also that lower frequency of experience where folks may have forgotten about the things that they've done and the ways that they've invested their energy, and now things are kind of piling back or returning back to their to their origin, and it's having the same effect but with a different resonance, if you will. It's like, damn, like what in the world is on one end? It's like, what did I do to deserve all this? And then on the other end, it's like, what did I ever do to deserve all of this? And I'm sorry to laugh, I'm sorry, but it's I'm not laughing at the situation, but my expression of it. But ultimately, it's the same experience, but it's all just a generation of karmic energy, whatever has been invested, whatever's been put out, whatever's been aligned with, made agreement with, some associations, again, some things that have been refused or rejected or abstained from as well. Like all of that is like being cooked up in the big old after holiday stew. You know what I mean? When everything that, all the leftovers, I don't know if your grandma did. My grandma, she make this amazing chicken soup, after the holidays where all the veggies and sometimes it was turkey soup, whatever it was, she'd throw it all in there and it'd be delicious. It's like that for some, and for others, I mean, hell, you would have had to start it with a good holiday meal to begin with, most likely. You couldn't have had some burnt, dried ass chicken and some, you know what I mean? Like you would have needed to have good ingredients to start to transfer and to form into that amazing soup. But for those that aren't having that higher frequency experience, it could be quite distasteful or hard to digest, of an experience. But the point of the matter is that across the board it's justified, whatever it is. So some folks forgot what they did with their time and energy in a lower frequency, and they may be reminded, or they may still not remember the connection. But either way, the experience that is being had is on account of what was already, again, invested, choices that were already made, energetically, actually, from, once again, last season, last year, last era, last lifetime, last cycle, whatever the retroactive energy may be. Is it retroactive or retrospective may be? It's justified, it's all justified, and it's for the purposes, again, of creating really like that transitional experience to what is ultimately becoming the new normal, whether that is for the next, again, another cycle of 10, 12, 15 years or so, or how until there's breath left in the body, or until, or maybe before, I'm not here to put a stronghold on divine time, for sure. Like it could be different for everybody, but this is the setup moment. This is the setup time frame, more or less. And also with that, it still does matter, how you hold yourself throughout that transition. You still want to stay focused or open or optimistic or grateful, no matter what side of the spectrum you may be fair, because you wouldn't want to make things worse than what you're experiencing, even if you feel like you don't necessarily have the power to impose a better experience or outcome. You can always alleviate some of the pressure or the discontentment, at the very least, of what we're speaking of here, by calling in the highest mindset you can possibly have. So that's where this Sagittarius, optimistic, high vibing mindset that I was saying about during the Christmas season, like that magic of Christmas, can be tucked away for times such as this, when it almost feel like it's a getting back to business type of frequency, where you either feel an expectation outside of yourself to readjust for a more focused and an infusion of something more streamlined and focused and faithful for your purpose, or you hold yourself accountable to that, to a certain standard in that regard. Still, as I said in the very beginning, give yourself grace, be gentle, be considerate of your humanity and all the things that are projected against that, you know, when you have such high ambitions or when you have such a high feat to overcome, regardless of the spectrum. But ultimately, it's your mind that is going to be your saving grace. You know, like it's your mind that is going to be your saving grace at this time. Yeah, so anyway, let's see what we got here. I'm gonna get right into it. Let's get a couple cards. Wow, I saw that card a lot too, the Nine of Cups. Like just this contentment, wish fulfillment. I also like to call this like a supreme self-esteem, and it's upright. You know, we'll see what comes along with it, but I definitely saw this a lot, like this sense of being at peace, being at ease, feeling pretty pleased with yourself. Maybe you're taking inventory of the year. And I would say that's probably the wisest thing to do when you're taking inventory of the past year and making considerations of how you want to move forward, is to really remind yourself heavy-handedly of all the ways that you achieved an experience that was desirable, or you were in a frequency of energy that was satisfying, you know, that was satisfying and pleasing to your senses, pleasing to you emotionally, spiritually, some things that ultimately that you could be proud of, whether you accomplished it on a material level or physical level, or just again energetically, emotionally, psychologically within yourself. This could even just be someone having taken this past year to really just invest in their self-esteem, you know, to invest in all the ways of being and seeing and believing that add the highest value to how they feel about yourself, or how you feel about yourself, or how you feel about life, you know, and the life that you're creating or what you're manifesting or attracting. But be heavy-handed on that if you can, because we can be critical of far more usually than we allow ourselves to be, you know, to be celebratory of. So now is the time to really bolster that confidence again, that esteem for yourself, by reminding yourself of all the wonderful things that you've accomplished this year, great and small. There may be some things that you want to continue, maybe some things that have, you know, that have reached their expiration, or that, you know, won't be carrying on through next year. But they must have had some value to get you to the point of the Nine of Cups at this point, where you're pretty full on yourself. You know, there's not much to be desired there. In terms of what you can actually do for yourself and by yourself. Because the next card would be the Ten of Pentacles, which then implicates some type of partnership or community or collective experience. So celebrate yourself for what you have done for yourself, or maybe even by yourself, theoretically, you know, this year. Ooh, the Empress. Yes. The Empress, yes. I mean, and I was thinking as I was shuffling that it could be something so small. Like I was seeing the Four of Wands in my head, and I was thinking like it could just be, you know, celebrating the home, you know, the peaceful home that you've made for yourself over this past year, the sanctuary of security that you have created. And that's a very internal, external thing, mostly, you know, like for the most part. I mean, you could manipulate your physical spaces and still more or less be empty inside, but there'll be signs of that too. This is not that. This is not a depiction of that. The Empress is very comfortable, very well taken care of, extremely attractive in an energetic sense and also an aesthetic sense. So there again, this doubles down on that self-esteem, of feeling good about how you present yourself to the world, but also who you are in private, again, by yourself, for yourself. And really there not being that could be a point of celebration, is how you've broken the cord of this determination with the outside world, meaning that external influences no longer dictate this experience. It's not dictated by how people see you or how they judge you or revere you or not. It's not dictated by any particular status or title, or position of power, so to speak. It 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 is an outward expression, because that's just the natural ordinance of someone that is facilitating a frequency inside of them, but it's happening from the inside out, not the outside in, and it's certainly not maintained from the outside in either. So that's something amazing to really celebrate. If you can resonate with that, where you have ultimately found yourself sitting pretty on your own pedestal because of the things that you are proud of achieving or creating, or attracting. And it may not be the opinion of anyone else outside of you, but as far as you're concerned, you're doing well and you're doing great, especially if you consider where you may have been this time last year when we were turning over into 2025. You may have a lot to really, pat yourself on the back about, or to just observe and give yourself credit for, that nobody else can give you credit for, because a lot of the things that I'm sensing are things that may not even be on public display. And that's when you know it's real. That's when you know it's authentic, because you are the decider of you. Like, you make that determination, instead of allowing it to be made for you or not. Yeah, but there's definitely something here. Like, these are strong cards. The 9, that there's a lot of fulfillment here in the progress that someone has made, I would say, by way of establishing their own sense of independence and almost like a sovereign creativity. But again, this is with the Cups and with the Empress. This is about receptivity and attraction. So this is someone that has learned how to receive good things coming their way, or has groomed themselves, throughout this year or however long, to be in a posture of reception, which is key to what I was saying earlier about this overflow that's coming in, where maybe where you were last year, these cards looked a little bit different. Maybe there was an uncertainty about worthiness, about whether or not you deserve certain spoils in life, certain privileges in life, certain securities in life. And there needed to be, maybe that's what I'm thinking of actually, in terms of this whole year being preparatory for this open, relentless, this posture of reception that needed to be cultivated in order for you to truly experience this influx and this flow as it is, without rejecting it or resisting it, or denying it or squandering it. Whatever it is, it usually comes by whatever that adverse reaction is to good things coming from the divine, from the universe, from your hard work, from your dedication, whatever, however you see it. Those good things, because I saw a lot of aces in the pre-shuffle as well, can sometimes seem too big to manage, or too big for you, too good to be true, or too much to, like, oh no, this is too much. I don't need all of that. Like, I'm fine with just this. Like, I'm good with just this much. I don't need that much. But, you know, whatever these incoming assets are to what you already cultivated for yourself, is to add value to the continuance of that energetic frequency, and also the magnification of it. So as the Empress, is no longer just about what makes you comfortable, because now you're building spaces, places, experiences, products, perhaps, I don't know, like businesses. It could be a number of things you could be creating in a material sense that now are going to nurture others. It could even just be your expression, you know, again, that testimony of your experience that is going to nurture others. That's literally going to give others vitality. So you would need to be in a position where, you know, there is very little, if none at all, trace of unworthiness, because that's not what you would want to make the impact or the influence on anyone or anything that is being that's ultimately being spawned from this evolution of your soul, you know, of yourself. I'll say of your spirit, if anything. Maybe your spirit and yourself, by way of that integration. You need the whole of you online to be the poster child that you are. You know, you don't need to be showing people that may or may, or that, let's say, in the highest frequency, that are on their way to achieving such an experience of life, that if you, how I want to say it is, if you're reflecting that you're undeserving, or you know how some, like, almost like fake humble, you know what I mean, like when sometimes people put on this air of humility, but really it's just like downtroddenness, if that's even a word, or you know, like insecurity, like when people humble themselves in the not even in the presence of God, because that's not even authentic, because I don't believe in the way that I'm speaking of that's something that's like a divine ordinance. The way that I'm speaking of it is when people like almost completely strip themselves of any credit or any type of accolades, recognition, consideration of achievement. You know, those that say, oh, I could do nothing without God, or I ain't do, you know, I'm just a wretch undone. No, if it wasn't for God, and it is true that that connection between self and source is vital, you know, especially if you believe it to be so. But there's also the aspect of self that can't be discarded. You know, there's still the I and the I am, which is your I, my I, you know, that is activated in the physical realm to even be an expression or an extension of that divine I. So it's like you're gonna cut yourself out of that, you know, because that really, to me, it just doesn't really render you to be as ready and willing and vital of a vessel as you could be, on account of, you know, learning to appreciate, dare I even say reverence, your own presence as well. And it doesn't take away anything from a supreme presence, you know, or from a divine presence. It's as a matter of fact, one and the same in many ways. So anyway, I don't even know why I went on that tangent, but this is someone that's been, more or less like appointed to a certain position or a certain uh, well, not necessarily a title, but a position of influence, and a position of creativity that has, massive um, implications, in terms of what can be impacted or what. Imagine like spawning a whole new, what's the right word? Like a whole new nation, kingdom. I'm trying to say something like spawning a new offspring of supreme self-esteem in the way that I was just speaking of, actually, where there's no tug of war between how valuable you are and how valuable your divine deference, whatever that may be, is. There's no competition there. There doesn't have to be one or over the other per se, but there's like a beautiful blending and matrimony of the two. Yes, there are definitely individuals that may already, incubate that identity or that philosophy. But now those that have have been incubating that for themselves, perhaps by themselves, perhaps not in the public eye whatsoever, are now perhaps, this is the transition, the getting ready to be revealed in a way that now can't not be seen or observed. And for that reason, it does have the impact of inspiration, of transformation, perhaps on those that may not have known it was possible to live a certain way, to see life a certain way and still thrive, let alone survive. So it's like being in a very favored and privileged position with a great deal of responsibility, no doubt, with the Empress. You have a great deal of responsibility and accountability for your own devotion, but an even greater impact to be made, perhaps again on the masses, on the collective, or at least in your corner of existence that ultimately will, oh, High Priestess, I didn't even know that was under here the whole time, that will ultimately like almost spread, a new way of living, a way of being. Well, the Empress gives life, like a new ideology that is, like somehow almost like a bread or milk or source of life or vitality, where again it becomes the new normal and you don't even know, like you may even look back like, how did I even live like that before? You'll probably appreciate it in the highest mind. But you'll certainly be thankful for the liberation that you received on the other side of it, whether it be by inspiration of those that carry this frequency, by the inspiration of observing yourself having transformed and incubating this frequency, or even perhaps by observance of those that are not having that experience, and the stark contrast and difference that bears as well. So either way, it just seems to me like a lot to be celebrated here. Let's see. Yeah, like with the High Priestess, it's almost like a new unorthodox religion, if that even, like that's in itself is almost it's like an anomaly or like a oxymoron in some way, because it's like not religion for convention or tradition's sake, but it's like a devotion to again, a new philosophy or a new way of living life that is religious because of the relentless devotion to it and the practices that come along with that. But it's not necessarily an allegiance to what, you know, it's more, here it is, it's more personally driven and individually driven by your own moral code of ethics, and the things that you uh find yourself faithful to or devout to, or that make make particular sense in your life energetically or spiritually, but not as a dictation um or a governing of some other greater body outside of yourself, telling you that this is the way that you need to live your life. This is what you need to do to set yourself apart. This is what you do. This is how you live righteously. This is how you find yourself on a purposeful path, or in the presence of divinity here manifested in humanity. There's no particular script or text or what's the right word, what commandment, let's say, for that experience. And that's what we're all coming out, well, some of us are coming to the saving knowledge and saving grace of. It's a matter of what you, again, cultivate as that spiritual security, as as you are literally the creator of it and the nurturer of it for yourself, by yourself. And not saying that it can't be inspired by others or other things, or can't even be some infusion of some of those dogmas and religious experiences that we know well and that we may even find value in or reverence. But it's very much so still a personal experience and expression of divinity. And it's one that I feel like those that find themselves reaching, that find themselves on the other threshold of that space, perhaps as we're moving into it now or throughout this next year, once you find yourself there on that other side, there like I said, it's like, how did I ever live any other way? How did I ever think any other way? How did I not know this or feel this or see this all along? Or certainly feeling like you would never go back to the way things that were, because it's so much more liberating and freeing experiencing life the way that you transformed into its being, or the way that it's been integrated into your transformation, whichever makes sense. So yeah, it's literally like a new religion. But although I'm hearing the song "Losing My Religion" by, what was that, R.E.M.? Losing my religion, trying to keep on you, and I don't know I can do it. Oh no, I said too much, haven't said enough. That's me in the corner, that's me in the spotlight, losing my religion. That's me in the corner. Look how he's kind of in the corner, and this is me in the spotlight. So again, it ties back to what's been done behind the scenes in the dark. Again, for self, by self, is now becoming some type of like some type of display, some type of display for inspirational purposes, and maybe provocative purposes too, because I'm sure And this is probably why the self-esteem needed to be carefully cultivated by self for self, is because with that there will certainly be naysayers and objections, and ops to perhaps that resonance of sovereignty. But you're not here for that. You're not here for them. You're here to be a beacon to those that are looking for this, even if they don't realize that they are. That's who you're here for. Those that feel like they got the monopoly on God, they know how it's done. They got Jesus on the main line, and they got a seat waiting in heaven for them. They're not going to be particularly in the market for what you're giving, or what you're expressing, and that's fine. Unfortunately, those are the ones that usually are the most aggressive in their objections, when they could just be, cool where they are with themselves. Nobody asked. However, what you are offering is just the sheer presence of supreme security, in whatever way that's expressed, because it doesn't have to be exclusive to religion, but it's just about being confident and sure about what you have to offer, your purpose in terms of what has been confirmed internally, personally to you, and then how you express that creatively, and however and whoever gets to benefit from that is beautiful, but it's not even necessarily for the outside beneficiaries either. It's almost, again, like a devotion to that supreme self, that, again, would be happening if you were in the corner by yourself, or when no one's watching, or if you are somehow on display, or on public display, or in the public eye. This is you, no matter what. No matter what. You're going to catch me praying. You're going to catch me speaking life. You're going to catch me feeling good about where I am at this present moment because I'm breathing. You're going to catch me always having a word of encouragement to myself and to anyone that I encounter. You're going to always find me, and no matter what the circumstances, looking forward to something even greater, something even more expansive, looking forward to another adventure, journey, reverencing where I've been, and the lessons I've learned and where I've come from, appreciating the position of progress that I've made for myself, by myself. Like, these are all the constants of someone that has the character of these two cards, that are really like the essence of high value humanity, man or woman. That's the essence of it. There are all those things that I just named. It's not the material things, because I actually didn't name any of that. It was all things that have been cultivated in those cups, perhaps spiritually, emotionally, energetically, psychologically, that have ultimately created, like, carved a space of what is this, like, of, I want to say superiority, supremacy, there it is, that have carved a space of supremacy for the one that cultivated it, or cultivated those things. It's not an outside appointment or adornment or an anointing. It's very much internal. And so therefore, it really can't even be argued, but you probably won't be hard up to find somebody that would like to argue against why you are the way you are, how you got to where you got to, how you achieved what you have, why you have the position or authority or power that you do. Like, they'll speculate, they'll throw all types of projections over you, but the grounding here at the Nine of Cups is what is fuel for the force. because that's the thing that's unlimited, you know, have being cultivated that way from the inside out. And and um it's like self-sustainable, you know, when it doesn't rely on any other source outside, then it continues to regenerate itself. And that could happen by way of just winning, you know, like I said, all these blessings that are coming through, blessings that are coming through, are going to be a constant reminder, almost like an inundation, if that's a word, of confirmation of who you are, of how deserving you are, how worthy you are, how privileged and favored you are. And those are the things that can't really be argued against, you know? So it's like, okay, here it is. So I'm speaking of those that are coming through the transition of a cycle where a lot of this again has happened behind the scenes, where no one could really see the prosperity or the progressive growth that someone has been experiencing, um, and also because the eyes of the world collectively don't judge by cup energy; they judge by pentacle energy. You know, maybe by wand energy, perhaps, but certainly cups would be the last thing that somebody would they would feel your prosperity even before they realize that's what they feel or recognize that's what they sense, let alone give, um, recognize it or give credit to it, you know, like accredit it. So if it's been very easy for some to have flown under the radar, and they're growing and evolving and being and grooming for such a time as this, and to ultimately be projected upon as something else entirely by those on the outside looking in. Which again, if not for this internal grounding, that could, and maybe in some ways did, make an impression on this emergence of an empress energy, you know, that is completely secure in who they are, knowing that they're beautiful inside out and attractive and powerful and so on, and well taken care of no matter what. But now it's like the things that were undetected or unnoticed or unseen, that were still very much there, but maybe discounted in many ways for the lack of materialism, are now being materialized. So now these cups are turning into pentacles. These the wands, the actions that have been taken in the past, are now turning into pentacles. Things that, like I was saying, like all the things that were invested back when nobody was looking, nobody was watching, nobody in some cases even cared, is what now is catching up. So in that case, it's like you wouldn't, that's why there's a disconnect or dissonance in wondering the origin of these blessings underway, and you know the equivalence of it all, because the ways in which you were even just investing in yourself were probably not really taken into account how they would manifest or accrue with interest at some other time or at some future moment. But here we are, and here they are, and here it is. So now it's like what may have been discounted, disregarded, maybe even disgraced back when, you know, it was easier to do so, because you just cultivating all of them cups that I just spoke of is not something that you could necessarily have to show for yourself in a physical sense. Now it's transforming in a way where it rectifies, you know, and almost like gives gives a it like a how can I say it, like it like it it like what's the word, it's it's a word that I want to say. I don't want to pass this word. Damn, I can't think of it. And every second of silence feels like radio silence when you're recording. But it's something about like giving value to what it gives it a whole nother value. You know, let's say this practically. You start physically showing up looking like the Empress, looking like $1,000,000, whatever that means to you. Here it connects to what I was saying about your closet and how you present yourself to the world. Could even be in how you dress, for sure, with the Empress. It could be in the luxuries of life that can't help but be noticed. It's not necessarily that you're bragging or boasting or putting things on display, but as they say, there will be signs, right? So it is what it is, but it somehow like almost retroactively or retrospectively gives a new value to what was in the dark, what was unknown and unseen before, and assigns a new value to that and gives it new validity, you know, and vitality to connect with the present moment where it's like, well, back when so and so couldn't be seen, or maybe we thought something was going on with them, or we heard this, or we assumed that, or whatever. Maybe that was the time space that has ultimately afforded this moment where that is very much on display or very much evident or visible, and there won't be much of a way to dismiss the connection of those two realities or concepts. You know what I mean? It's like one will ultimately vindicate the other in a sense. So what people thought you were doing behind the scenes, or how they thought you were living, or whatever their judgments were about you, somehow become dispelled by the progress that you've made in present day, because what they thought they knew or heard doesn't really make sense for what they're experiencing right before their eyes in real time. So therefore it creates this connection of, like, again, inspiration, almost a muse of sorts, to want to know, like, well, what was going on back there that led to this? You know, like, how did you go from that to this? Or what was the bridge? What was the catalyst? Like, people will want to know, hopefully, how to create that experience for, or enhance that experience for themselves, you know? And it ultimately works to dispel any projections or misgivings or misunderstandings that were lingering before, because ultimately the fruits of your existence, you know, of your labor as they are flowing in, are ultimately speaking for you, you know. That's what it comes down to. And that is what ultimately I know I'm saying ultimately a lot, that's what puts you on this pedestal, again, for public observation, for public spectacle, or just to have more of an influence than you had before, in many ways, perhaps not even just by your testimony, by what you can but by what you can actually do to help improve the quality of people's life experiences. And it just completely nullifies and justifies at the same time who you were when nobody was watching. It's like you wouldn't necessarily perhaps go out here and be like, this is what I was doing last season. You like, there's so many things that people, again, to the point in the preview, you don't even in some ways remember all of the things that you did to keep your head above water, to maintain a certain frequency of integrity, to keep hope alive, to stay faithful, to stay devoted, to stay committed, to stay optimistic. There are some things that you don't even remember that you did. Some things you don't remember you spoke over yourself. Some things you don't remember you wrote. Some desires or dreams or goals you don't even remember writing down, or you forgot how you worked towards certain things. It's like all of that energy is coming back with, I wanted to say a vengeance, but that's the other side. It's coming back with vitality, like supernatural vitality, because it's overwhelming in all the right ways to make you almost like not even, hopefully my prayer is that you will remember. There'll be subtle reminders, just to add value to what you're experiencing and what you're receiving. But my human mind doesn't think that it would even be possible, at least not at first, maybe over your lifetime, but might not even be possible to remember, oh yeah, I remember I did such and such and this is the result of that, or I invested my time this way and that's why I'm receiving this. It's going to be too much. You're not even going to, you ever have a Christmas, or I mean, most moms or dads will probably get this, where you don't even remember where you got certain stuff. You done bought so much. Like, I think I got, that wasn't me this year. I was very sensible, and it was still, like my son said, it was like one of his best Christmases, which I'm proud of. But it wasn't like I did so much last year trying to buffer having a whole bunch under the tree, like, oh, look at all these presents. And he enjoyed it. It was spectacular to give that way, and great for me to experience his experience, of which seasons prior years, I haven't always been able to do that. So when I could, I just went kind of off the wall. But this year I was like, you know what, I'm going to get the things that he absolutely wants, and I'll get a couple of things that he may have forgotten. Here it is, forgotten that he asked for, or like one-off things that he said in conversation that he probably wouldn't even have thought I remembered. And those were the things that he was like, so excited about, like of course he was excited about things that he absolutely wanted, but the other little things weren't just fillers. It was like things that he actually wanted, that he actually asked for at some point in time. And then there were a few little things that were just from mommy, like, here you go. But for the most part, it was, the joy that he experienced and the joy that I felt was in being able to give him exactly what he asked for, plus the things that he forgot that he asked for, and that's the energy that I'm feeling here. It's like, but in past seasons, like last year, sometimes you forget where you order stuff. Not me so much. I'm really speaking for my mom, because she used to be like that, where she would be shopping so much because Christmas was her favorite season, that she would literally be like, she would save all her receipts, but she would really have to think like, where did I get that from? Because she bought so much stuff for everybody that there was no way she could remember or keep track of all the energy that she invested out there, but that's how it is. It's like a little bit of that and a little bit of the, oh, I did ask for this. I did really want this. I did remember, seeing this or us talking about this. And now here it is. Here it is at a moment that you least expected it to be, really. Here it is. And it's all yours, So I don't know. Something about that. I know I got very few cards. Oh my God, it's already an hour. Oh my goodness. Is anybody even gonna watch this? I'm clearly channeling more than I'm shuffling. And I'm okay with that. But for those that like to see more cards out, I'm sorry. I'm just going with the flow. Oh, that's way too many. But let's see. Maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, that's way too many. And this is an energy that, I don't know, because this is like 3 of Pentacles, the 6 of Pentacles. It's ultimately speaking to getting what you deserve. There was work and energy put into collaborations, with very prescriptive measures, intentional, calculated is what I'm getting, calculated measures. And here it is, it's coming back around. This is what goes around comes around card with the Six of Pentacles. It's with interest from the Three of Pentacles to the Six. You know, it's doubled up, maybe double for the trouble that some have caused, or for, you know, again, the ways that on either side, because I'm seeing it as, I don't know, the energy feels like something lower frequency to me, but it is all upright, and it is the King of Swords. But I think the reason why it is the King of Swords is because, like I said, it's fair, it's honest, it's true, it's just. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing underhanded, there's nothing deceptive about the transmission of fate and fortune, let's say, in this season. It's very much like your human mind might not be able, as I've said, to calculate the origins, the original point of investment or action or initiation, but trust and believe is well documented in the divine, you know, in the divine records. So everything that's being dispersed is particularly fair and just, you know. Matter of fact, let me do this because it's gonna be right on the bottom. Oh, okay. All right, what's that? Oh, and the Sun is definitely a card that came up. Wow, how that just slid out. Like, yeah, this reading needs a little more light. I got you, boo. It's like asking somebody to turn the light on and somebody turn the whole sun on. like that's crazy, you know. And that leads me back to the beginning of things that you asked for, that you probably forgot, or that you asked for and in a particular way that you didn't realize would come in such a grand package, you know. And I've had, over the season, I've had things surprise me on both sides. Like, I've had things that I thought were going to be heavy packages come very light, but be, you know, but were the gifts that made some of the greatest impact. And I've had things that really weren't even, you know, like, I bought my son like a new basketball over the door hoop that's electronic, so it keeps score. The last one he had didn't do all that, so he got an upgrade this year of one that keeps score and you can play games with yourself and this and that, and it's bigger. That one I didn't expect to come in this heavy ass box, and it did. And it was probably like one of the most like one-off type gifts that I got him, because it wasn't anything that he asked for, but I knew he would appreciate the upgrade, you know. So just using my personal experience to tell you, like, the package that certain prayers are being answered in might be more dynamic and even like astounding than what you anticipated, especially at the point that there was prayer uttered for it or there was an intention toward it. You know, it's something so much bigger. It's like asking for shoes and you get a whole shoe store or a shoe line, or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that was probably a real bad analogy, but think of something small you could ask for, and then it coming and it's like, yeah, I got you. I'm gonna give you that, but I'm gonna give it to you like this, because I know you're gonna really like it like this. You know what I mean? It's like asking in prayer, like petitioning the divine to support you in cultivating courage and self-esteem and acceptance of who you are, loving yourself, appreciating your presence. And it's like, yeah, I got you, boo. And all that you did in the dark, and now here in the spotlight, the ultimate spotlight, I'm about to like go crazy on your exaltation. You just want to be good for you. Now you about to be good for a whole new generation of people, perhaps that haven't even been born yet. It's like just wanting to do good by yourself and your family and your legacy and your lifetime. And now it's like, yep, I thank you for having that ambition, for having that devotion. And now I'm about to exalt you so that not only do you make a blessed impression on your legacy, but you about to bless other people's too. Other people's children's children that ain't even thought of yet may be about to, may be set to glean from the impressions that you've made on life in the breadth of time and in the span that you have had to create businesses that you've opened, and your way of being a mom, speaking of which, the Empress is the ultimate mommy. The way you see fit to raise your children now, and now releasing that energy out into the world. That could also be that spirit of like a new way of life, a new religion, in a sense, where the morals and ethical standards that you are impressing upon your children are set to change the course of creation in a dynamic way, you know. So it can be seemingly small, it can be great, but whatever it is, I feel like it's someone, I'm talking to someone that didn't really set out to do too much, or even in the lofty ways that you did. It's like the divine is going to exaggerate, exacerbate, you know, like magnify that even more, even more. No matter what you would have asked for, it would have always been that result, that it would be even greater. But in some ways, you know, you may have had some really lofty ambitions, and now your socks about to be knocked off, literally, by how the divine responds to those petitions in spirit and in flesh. This is beautiful, honestly. Oh, come on, really? The Five of Pentacles? Are we for real right now? Let's see. What's this Five of Pentacles about? Back to, I was about to say, I was like, I feel like that's some adverse energy, because look what we got. The third. Oh, look. Oh, look. It all came out again. The same three cards came right back out together. Look at that. It came out again, and then with the Eight of Swords. I don't even want to go there. I think if you know, you know. That's the energy of those that are not having a great experience, that are perhaps even locked into their own choices at this point. Again, they're locked into that karmic regeneration that they have invested in. And this is the result, Five of Pentacles. And it's kind of random in the course that, you know, in the way that we were going. But I don't know, I think people don't want to be forgotten or disregarded in their suffering. However, it's like, it's the same experience if you get into it. It's like things that were cultivated in the dark, those that may be having an opposite experience are not expected to do anything more or less than what was achieved in that blackout time for some others. You know, it's like that dark night of the soul, or that moment of soul searching for the purposes of evolving and growing. It's still, it's the same expectation. It's no different across the board. Now the stakes might be a little different, because you're carrying a different resonance from what was already done in this past season or whatever up until this point, which might make the degree of difficulty a bit greater. But it's still the same thing. Like, what can you accomplish from the inside when you have very little resources or support, or understanding, belief, maybe sympathy and empathy to do so? What can you do with that? it's still an opportunity, but it's like I said in the beginning, it's a matter of the mind and how you see it. So I feel it's like people wanting, like kind of having, it's either, okay, because with next to the sun, it's either people not wanting their misfortunes to show. That could be it too, because like I was saying, all over here, it's about kind of being exposed or put on public display. So that's why that could be here, actually, because the sun is shining the light on both energies. Let me just get one more, I think. Let's see. But the sun is not discriminatory, like it's going to shine a light on everything in everything that's in its line of exposure, so to speak. That's what it's doing now. So those that are caught living the high life, whether they want to be on display or not, there's that. And those that, damn, or perhaps living a low life, unfortunately, there's going to be a certain exposure for that as well, where you won't be able to necessarily hide under a rock or, and the difference is that there may have been projections on those that were living kind of in the shadows or behind, in secret or behind the veil or whatever before. But now it's like I said, there's no discrimination. Everything is seeing the light of day. Everything's on display. Everything's subject to exposure. So again, on either side, whether you want to be on display or not, there's more or less a probability that you will. And I guess the Five of Pentacles could also be inspirational, like a cautionary tale, for those that were deeply considerate of the road that they should travel or the decisions that they should make. You'll have an example of what it looks like in one regard, and you'll have an example of what or how it could look adversely. And not that there is a particular rule book on either side, but just generally speaking, there will be signs. There will be signs. This is a fruitful existence. This is the very opposite with the Five of Pentacles. Like having nothing really to show for any type of prosperity or productivity. Is like you couldn't work enough to show value in your material life. You may not even be well. You certainly may not have, may not feel good about yourself or about your state of being, at that point. And you certainly wouldn't want to be on display for it, you know what I mean? But for some, that actually might be the way out, is to, I think, this is definitely a projective thought, but I feel like the way to healing would be to allow those sun exposure, those rays of exposure to really just, light up your life from the inside out and almost like submit yourself to being that cautionary tale or testimony of things that, ways that could lead to this outcome, and ultimately transform yourself into a testament, to righteousness one way or another. That takes a lot of courage to do. But to fully absorb the sun, that gives, so much courage for such things. It can be done. It can be done in that. Wow, here's a Nine of Pentacles. Oh, that's crazy. I had spoken about the Nine of Pentacles. It can be done, and ultimately is what could lead to that coveted sense of independence and the materialization, here it is again, of that pure essence of independence and liberation, not the one that was bargained for unethically or unjustifiably, or vied for by diabolical means, or in ways that were just like disruption to the spirit or the soul, or to one's own integrity, or whatever, like whatever could bring someone to the Five of Pentacles in the way that it has here, like in the midst of all this amazing stuff that's going on in these 5 cards. You got this Five of Pentacles smack here randomly, and I feel like that's a depiction of how we may, like I was saying before, be experiencing life, those that are having one experience and those that are having the other, and it being very clear, like very evident at the same time. But even still, like that exposure and that display is what I really mean to say. That display serves a great purpose on either side of the spectrum, because this is what's coveted, to have this experience in life that is a materialization of supreme self-esteem. This was the investment that was made to get to this. Before it was material, before it was anything that you could count or measure or, even really manage in the carnal sense. So it was hard to really gauge what you had, what you didn't, by according to what you felt or what you sensed. Like it was very hard to manage this frequency here, but it was done. So it means it can be done. And if it can be done, and this is the ultimate outcome, the desired outcome, which I think it is, no matter how folks are going about it. Some people push other people down to get to this point. Some people degrade themselves to get to this achievement. Some people sacrifice things, for the greater good, for whatever the case may be. But ultimately, the ideal is to come to this Nine of Pentacles energy where you're good all by yourself, no matter what happens in the world, what happens around you and your family, what happens in the government, what happens at the job, what happens in your relationship, your partnership, whatever it is. Like, you're always grounded on a sturdy, firm foundation. You can take care of yourself. You have your own ideals. You're secure, whether you're alone or whether you're coupled or collective. Like, there's nothing that can shake the frequency of security here at the Nine of Pentacles, because it's not just a matter of the spirit or the psyche. It, again, here it is, materializes now to the point where it's undeniable. You would be hard pressed to resist the truth of how progressive, prosperous, and abundant you truly are, regardless of if you can trace the origins or not. What you wouldn't be able to deny is the physical firsthand experience. And that's what is most coveted in this human experience in this realm. So if there could be an inspiration, a muse by way of those that have done it, a certain type of way in their own right, I mean, it would just be we could never have enough inspiration, really, of different ways that it's been done, not being anything prescriptive or dogmatic, but just for folks to be able to say, well, this is how I achieved X, Y, and Z. Well, this is how I overcame 1, 2, and 3, And so there's the evidence that it's possible, which is all you really need. in the grand scheme of things is the hope that it can be done. And so then it can relentlessly be almost like a focus of your faith, you know, that no matter how rough the transition may be for those that may not necessarily be having the most favorable experience, that there's still a silver lining on the other side of that cloud if you are devoted enough to, you know, to see it, maybe even to be it in this case. So even with the, you know, the lower frequency that is kind of weighty and, you know, a little bit heavy with this Five of Pentacles, there's still hope even there, you know. And I love to end the 2025 on that note, that no matter what the experience is, there's still a high potential to achieve this status here, where you don't need a title, you don't need recognition, you don't need accolades, you don't need degrees, labels, you know, like applause, pats on the back, subscribers, viewers, you know, like whatever. Like you're perfectly content with what it is that you are creating and cultivating for yourself, like what makes you feel accomplished and successful, and is far off the scale mostly from the standards that you may have been or that you could have been beholden to make different choices at the investment stage. And now you get to be a poster child for that phenomenal example. Page of Cups and Strength. Wow. Page of Cups and Strength. So Page of Cups is like that energy of, you know, oh shoot, like almost like a sensitivity or neediness. Okay, so it's like you have kind of mastered that very sensitive or delicate, I should say, space of submission and sovereignty. That's what I'm getting from this. Right up under the sun at that. Because remember, I was talking a lot about, you know, kind of like absolving yourself of any respect or reverence in terms of the things you're creating on the earth, when it's a co-creative process, you know, between yourself and the divine. Even the things that you pray for, you know, many of us don't even realize the things that we've said and how we may be living in answered prayers right now. Things that may not have even come to pass if it were not for you uttering certain words or having certain intentions or working towards certain outcomes. So you tell me how valuable you must be to the divine if that much is true. But here I feel like between the Page of Cups and the Strength, it's like that perfect balance between being dependent and submissive and needing that cup to be filled at times, or knowing that there is a resource of vitality that can be accessed, but also knowing that you are a resource as well, that you are a reservoir, as a matter of fact, in many ways. That's a very important reality to embody. You know, it's a pivotal reality to embody, because it's almost like two opposite energies here, because I always see the Page of Cups, many of the pages, as more dependent, maybe even codependent energies, but here it's like you're just as strong in your delicateness, you know, your sensitivity, as you are in your ferocity and maybe even in your carnality. You know, like your spiritual sense about you is just as key and just as strong. And because those two frequencies are well aligned now, for those that can resonate with the progressiveness of this message for the most part, it makes you even that much more invaluable to yourself, to the divine, and also to the world that you can make an influence on. And as a matter of fact, that's why you're so invaluable to the divine, because of the type of energy that you generate, whether you speak on it, whether you are a public figure or not. You could still live a very private life, but there's something about the energy that you generate, like being strong in your sensitivity and being strong as the delicate creature that you are, and there almost being like a power behind that sensitivity that is more impactful than being holistically this or holistically that. Because you could be so dependent that you don't feel or you don't actively add value to anything you absorb for the most part. And you could be so strong and so forceful and powerful in a kinetically perhaps, that there's not a lot that can be absorbed, or there's not a lot, your influence becomes a bit limited because okay, I get it now. Your influence becomes a bit limited because it's kind of niche, or it's only relatable to certain other people, like people that may be just as strong as you or forceful as you are, which could be a dime a dozen. But when you can stand in your authenticity and vulnerability, that's what it is, vulnerability, and for the things that you have experienced, the things you have overcome, the ways that you have evolved, progressed, advanced, and you present that in the power of your pride for it all. Oh man, like that can move mountains in terms of the obstacles and obstinance that ultimately keep people out from that experience. You could literally help people move mountains psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, from things that they thought kept them confined or captivated, or kept them out of alignment for this, again, this coveted outcome, to even perhaps even fast tracking, like accelerating that process. That maybe that's what this is. This Five of Pentacles is like almost lighting the path for an accelerated transformation or transportation to the most desired outcome for them. It's something about that here, but it comes by way of your unique testimony and life experience. And again, like being proud of your moments of vulnerability, and perhaps and proud of how you're still vulnerable, and that in effect is your strength. Yeah. So to bring it back all around, there's a lot that's about to be imparted unto you that's could put you in make you a public spectacle, or have some type of public interest, or attract some type of public interest or curiosity, or just external, whether it be public or not, but just some external interest and fascination that ultimately can be teachable, or influential in its own way. Not in a dogmatic way, but it can be influential in a way that will help others transition themselves to the supreme space of sovereignty. And I would say gracefully, because that's what those that have kind of felt their way through the dark already, that's the way the learning curve is shaved, because there are certain pitfalls that you could probably attest to that might help steer someone else around, or go a different way, or shorten their trip in half the time. Maybe. I don't know for sure, but maybe. I would imagine so. I would say for those that are in the mind space, literally, to, that have, purified their intentions to have this outcome one way or another, I would believe that it's possible to accelerate that transition. And it doesn't mean that anyone that has the power to influence that has to feel obligated to do so. I'm just saying this is a great moment in time to acknowledge that you do have that power just by living your life the way that you are. You don't have to do anything else but continue to generate that realm of possibility in your waking life, so that could be the beacon for someone else that is searching for that sanctuary, for that refuge, within themselves, mind you, not through you, but for themselves, with them, again, for themselves, by themselves. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there, as if there's anything more to say. Well, an hour and 36 minutes is crazy for, what is it, 7 cards? But it is what it is. He that have an ear, let him hear. If this is for you, the time doesn't matter, because I know for sure when I come across a long reading that if I'm locked in, I'm locked in. So it don't really matter what the time is. So I pray that this reaches whomever it will, which I believe I've realized is a very select and special group of physical beings. But what I express into the ethers, it resonates no matter who hears it. I know that much about myself, that all I got to do really is think it. But when I actually take the extra step to say the things that are imparted to me, it is atmosphere altering at the highest level and at the lowest. So my supreme self-esteem is grounded in the fact that there is value in how I express and expel my energy, even for those that don't even realize they're in the market for it, or that they were needing to hear it, needing the energy to be transmitted or whatever. If you never hear this message, something that I've said has some resonance somewhere that hopefully can be, that surely, I'm not even going to hold you. Like, I know that it surely is transformative, just as sure as it is transmitted, So let that also be, an encouragement to other spiritualists in the community, especially on on social platforms, that you certainly don't have to judge yourself or hold yourself by your stats and your analytics or the algorithm, because if you feel particularly empowered to present yourself in whatever way you do, creatively, there is a value attached to that. Or did I already say value? I can't remember, but there is I won't even say there is a value, but there is a vitality attached to that. Absolutely, there's a vitality attached to that, and it reaches exactly who it's supposed to, exactly how, at the precise time, and with the impact necessary. Know that much, especially if you are expressing from a purely passionate sense, meaning whether it's this or something else, like you would darn near do it for free, or again, if nobody's watching, if that's you in the corner, flipping your cards, singing your song, writing your book, sharing your testimony, and nobody, like if a tree falls, does it make a sound? Absolutely. You bet it does. And it impacts the forest that it's in as well, the habitat that it's in. So let that be an encouragement to you for the future, which is not so far away, the near future of this transmission to 2026, that it's not about quantity. It's not quantity. It never was. That that assigns a value to what you have to offer and who you are being in this realm. It's just your presence. Just your presence alone is what is precious. And I know that sounds so cliche, but if there's anything that could resonate from these two cards that I harped on for so long with the sun, is that your presence is precious. And that doesn't need to be confirmed or affirmed by anything outside of you once you have established that certainly within yourself. Period. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you for listening, especially if you made it to this part. Happy New Year to you and yours. Happy holiday seasons continued. Don't be afraid to allow some of that merriment spill over into 2026. Don't feel like you gotta cut it off, at the knees to get into gear. You know what I mean? You know how we go, getting into gear. Allow yourself to transition gracefully. I assure you, you will probably put yourself in a position to really enjoy the transition that much more when you allow yourself to flow with it, as opposed to like force yourself into it, if that makes sense. And trust me, I am preaching to myself in that regard for sure. All right. All right. I love you all. Thank you so much for rocking with me throughout this year. This was a very pivotal year for me. One day I'll be able to share fully, what's been going on for me as I was in the corner and in the dark and behind closed doors and in the unseen, and still am in many ways. And I can't say that I'm altogether hyped for any particular spotlight, but I am poised for it. At least I would like to believe so. So however it comes, however I get to be a living testimony to divine dominion, in spirit and in flesh, I'm a willing vessel. I am a willing vessel. All right. So anyway, again, thank you for listening. For some reason, it's hard for me to sign off today. I don't know what that's about, but thank you for listening and watching all year long. Thank you for every way that your presence has been felt in the most positive sense. I guess the negative too, whatever that may be. It's all been valuable and progressive and advancing in some type of way. So I'm grateful for it all, and I'm looking forward to some new experiences and expressions with you in the new year. So stay tuned and stay safe. All right. Enjoy yourself tonight. Enjoy yourself. Yeah. And let's, keep our eyes peeled together for, how you get like late Christmas gifts. That's what I just got a vision of, like a whole sleigh, like Santa got delayed. And there's a whole sleigh incoming of of gifts that you thought you weren't getting, that you forgot about, or that you just chalked up like, oh, this is good. What you got on Christmas was fine. You're just in a spirit of gratitude overall for all that you have. So if that's you, boy, oh boy, are you about to be razzle dazzled? Are you about to be amazed? Christmas not just come early, but come back around again. Santa spinning the block is the image, with a whole new bag, sleigh of gifts just for you. Yep, that's right. So again, Merry Christmas, season's greetings, Happy New Year's Eve, Happy New Year, and happy life indeed. All right, until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.